we're ready. Okay.
We're good to go.
We're good to go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Culture A. I'm sitting here today with Kameron Hutchinson.
Yes.
Kameron and I don't know each other. I researched and I stalked you on various social platforms, and I said I need to bring him in. He is the recruitment director for Allsopp Allsopp, which is huge.
Indeed.
Do you have any idea how many employees there are at Allsopp?
We are approaching 600. In fact, just gone over 600.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah.
I was expecting the thousands. I don't know why.
Not yet. We've got big plans, Sarah.
Wow, big name.
Big name, big plans. We're around that 600 mark.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so I've told you all that he's the recruitment director for Allsopp Allsopp, but there's something that there's another layer of Kameron's experience, and actually I don't know enough about it, so maybe Kameron, I'll ask you to tell me. There's Allsopp Allsopp, which you do the internal recruitment for, and then I think there's an agency.
Correct.
Okay, so welcome to the show, number one.
Thank you.
Before I jump into my 1,000 questions, can you tell the listeners just a bit about your background and then this whole agency versus internal thing?
So basically, I am recruitment director for Allsopp Allsopp, yes. And it's great that you think that we have more people than we do, because that shows that we're doing a good job in terms of presenting our brand. But I also wear another hat, which is to operate a recruitment agency under the same namesake. So everybody will be familiar with Allsopp Allsopp as a real estate business, but we also have an executive search agency, which I started in 2021 with Lewis, our chairman, and Carl Allsopp, our CEO. And that business is a separate business, a separate entity, if you like, but it leans into the success of Allsopp Allsopp Group. Of course, we've been established for 16 years nearly, and it leans into the success of that business already by offering clients another service.
So question, okay, because typically you don't see that model, right? People don't do that. So that's in and of itself like a new transformational type of thing. Why?
So it's quite typical of the way that the owners of Allsopp Allsopp Group operate. If they can bring something in-house where they can either save money or they can make extra money or revenue,
makes sense,
then they will do so.
Right.
And so if we rewind right back to 2016 when I joined the business, prior to me, were working with recruitment agencies. The idea of me coming on board was so that we didn't have to use recruitment agencies.
Right.
So we brought everything in-house as a business so that we could retain that.
You build your internal capability, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's clearly worked. Nearly 8 years later, I'm still there.
Yeah.
Or still here, I should say. But the idea behind the recruitment agency was to, as I say, either make or save some money. In actual fact, with this business, it's to generate a revenue stream.
So you're working, you're an agency for other clients. It's not that you're working for, it's not like an internal.
No. So maybe to make it even clearer, there's me, which sits and overlooks all recruitment for group side and executive search.
Okay.
But I have a team which takes care of everything internally. So we will hire a barista or a videographer or a sales agent or a CFO, everybody internally, recruitment, my team take care of.
Right.
But then outside, we have the exec search agency, and that's to work with clients all around the UAE, Middle East region generally, and further afield. We've got clients in Africa, the UK, the US.
Is it industry specific?
No, and that's another...
You're really stretching yourself, are you not?
I don't think it's stretching if you do it properly.
Okay.
And ultimately, recruitment is about people.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a good relationship with somebody, you're likely to do business with them, whether or not that's buying a house or a car or helping you find a job. And I think sometimes recruitment gets pigeonholed unnecessarily. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely industries where you should be specific and you should have specific focus on. But for me, operating as a people person and hiring similar people around me, our job is to give the person that's in front of us the best possible service. Now, if you tell me that you're looking for a CFO or a sales agent or a marketing director or anything, the likelihood of being able to go out and headhunt is high. So I wouldn't say that we stretch ourselves. We operate with clients who we have great relationships with. And that's another reason that the business was formed. Allsopp Allsopp itself, 16 years in the UAE. Think about the little black book of clients that we have just sat there waiting to be leveraged on. And some of them we've been very successful with, some of them we've not managed to tap into yet. And I think there's very much the waiting on the sidelines. Okay, so what is this? Is it going to work? And it is working, but the longer we're established,
of course,
the more people will see what we're all about.
Because it's tried and tested.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, that's super interesting. I mean, you really don't see that model. Nobody, and it's like either you're an agency or you're an in-house team, and there's no crossover, and generally the two don't like each other, generally, because it's so difficult to start to build relationships. Expectations are high, demands are high, and so on and so forth. I'm guilty of it. I've put a few. I apologize. Okay, I put a few agency account directors through some shit. Okay, because I am the client, and you kind of put yourself in. So it's anyway. I digress.
Actually quite like that, and I actually think it's a really valid point. But it's also the reason that you should use me, because I sit on both sides. So
you understand.
I am somebody who supports businesses to recruit, but I'm also a decision maker in my own business internally. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum and can sympathise somewhat. So I've equally been difficult, shall we say, with some agency recruiters in the past, because we have a certain criteria that we're looking for and we must match it. Yeah. But equally, I can be a little bit more understanding because I am now an agency recruiter as well as being an in-house.
Okay, so thank you again. Thank you for taking time. It's actually very nice to meet you. I'd like to hear all about your background. How long have you been in Dubai?
8 years. Nearly.
8 years.
Next month it will be 8 years.
Okay, wow. Okay, great. So property, as a sector is not one that I'm very familiar with.
Okay.
You only hear rumblings of rumors and what's going on in the industry. Okay. So I did some research and I have some facts. Can I run you through some facts?
For sure, go for it.
Okay. According to the findings of the Professional Network's annual Jobs on the Rise list in the UAE, which highlights the fastest growing roles in the country, real estate consultants who specialize in residential and investment properties are the most sought after workers. That just a direct result of the property boom, you think?
I think it's because wherever you are in Dubai or the UAE, especially with the emergence of more development in places like RAC, it's everywhere. Real estate is everywhere. People need homes, people need places to live, people need people to bridge that gap between the development or the property and the actual purchasing or letting cycle or process. So it doesn't surprise me that it's one of the most in-demand jobs, especially when you consider that real estate agents could be considered quite entrepreneurial, right, in terms of the skills that they have. And if I take our own business and I think about some of the people that we've hired over the years, they don't all come from a real estate background.
Okay. So it's
might
learned.
Surprise you. Learned, yeah, but it's skills based, right?
Okay, so let me take a step back. I'm going to give you my own personal opinion. Okay. Disclaimer, totally my own personal opinion. It's not based on any data. I was saying actually before you came into the room that if I could, oh God, I don't want to lose my job, but if I could change roles, in life, because my career is built in HR, if I had to do it all over again and I could go into buying, renovating or flipping, renovating and then flipping homes, that would be honestly, it's the dream thing for me. But I only know the nice aesthetic part of it, the interior design part of it. I don't know the other part of it. When I think about actually, if I had to go and interview to become like a, oh God, I don't know, a property agent, or I don't even know the right terminology.
Well, if we just group it as real estate broker,
broker,
might be easier,
I would probably be horrific for the job, to be honest with you. I think it needs so much grit.
It definitely needs grit. It definitely needs determination. It definitely needs. You just need to show up every day. And people often say, "Oh, what's the magic formula? What's the special sauce?" There is no special sauce. You just got to show up consistently. Keep doing the basics. The results will follow, and that's difficult, especially when you're not not receiving a basic salary.
I know it's so hard. That's the thing. It's commission only. It's commission only, so you're really you have to go get it every single day. You don't have an option.
Correct.
Okay, so that'll make you do it, but the motivation truly from within to have to do it. You have to like it. You have to want it.
Yeah, you have to love the product, right?
You have to love the product. And imagine how many people you're dealing with that are just difficult. Especially because
but that's the same in any industry.
It's in any industry, but when you think about, because you're helping people find a home, right? So people are going to be so specific and picky because it is where they're living. It's where they're spending the majority of their time. It's what makes them feel good. It's what gives them that comfort feeling. It is so hard, and so everyone has this, I'm sure, very long list of expectations. Like, if you think about what I told some of the real estate agents I spoke to when we were moving houses, it was all like, floor to ceiling windows, and I want light to flood my life, and I want high ceilings, and
Did you get those things?
No, of course not. No, I didn't, because my budget didn't allow for like.
There's always a compromise.
Yeah,
always.
You have to compromise. My budget wanted, penthouse living. The reality, was a nice home, that I've made work. So, but it's difficult because you're dealing with all these expectations.
Yes.
Some might say that it's actually harder than dealing with some executives that you would in a corporate office, right? Because everyone kind of knows where they can and can't push at work.
For sure.
But when you're dealing with something so personal, there's no boundaries.
You're dealing with something so personal, but if you throw on the fact that you're dealing with multiples of that, you're not just dealing with one particular client. So you've got your expectations, which are penthouse living on studio budget. I'm not saying that's exactly the case, but that's a lot of the time what people will have,
right?
But you're dealing with that 10, 20, 30, 40 times, so you've got to be quite dynamic. And I think the consistency and the hard work and the determination is probably overlooked, or it's often overlooked actually, because people will see real estate as a fairly low bar of entry, right? And there's no arguing with that. You only have to go on to LinkedIn or any job site, and lots of companies are recruiting for real estate agents. There is a demand that needs to be supplied. But if you look at how many people will actually stay the course of time, the percentage of people that actually will say, I've got this, I know it, like I know my stuff, I'm confident, I'm comfortable, I'm knowledgeable of my product, that's when the magic happens, because anybody could go into real estate today. How many people are actually successful and consistently successful in real estate? That's the beauty. And I think that's what makes Allsopp and Allsopp very good, because of the number of high-performing individuals that we've got.
Actually, I was going to lead to that. So before we get back to our fact, I want to ask you, since you touched on it, when you are hiring for Allsopp and Allsopp, actually, this is actually a point I think I have later on. The property sector is very saturated in the sense that there are so many agents. There's so many agencies that you can work with, so many agents you can talk to. You don't know, as someone who wants to rent or buy, you don't know where to go. Like what is good, you don't know in advance, right? So, but Allsopp and Allsopp, I know the name. I know the name, I know the brand. I can't say that for many other agents, at all, actually. And I don't think it comes down to you guys, got lucky with your marketing. I think it's because you built a reputation, right? And the reputation is based on what you're able to deliver. Yeah. So when you're hiring, how do you evaluate that? How do you filter for, is this person going to have longevity? Does this person have what it takes? And are they actually going to deliver proper customer service? Yeah.
I mean, when we talk about magic formula earlier, I wish there was a magic formula where we could hire somebody and they would stay the test of time. And that doesn't matter whether it's real estate, by the way. It could be anywhere in a corporate world. Somebody interviewing versus somebody day one, day 6 months. You're like, you're very different. Very different in some, and sometimes good and sometimes bad. How we try to select what is not an exact science is through personality, is through ultimately what they know about us. I think I've mentioned this before on my own social media, but it's a two-way street, interviewing, right? It's me interviewing you to see whether or not the company is right for me, but equally it's the interviewer seeing if the candidate is right for the company. And I think so long as you both enter that knowing that, and you're open and you're honest with each other, then I think that's a good basis to start from. And looking at somebody's CV or their LinkedIn profile and understanding how many jobs they've had and seeing whether or not those jobs, okay, so you've had 6 jobs in 2 years, that's a bit jumpy. Could you explain them? If there is a valid explanation, maybe there's a reason to go, okay, yeah, we'll roll the dice on this candidate. But if there isn't, or there is a doubt, probably there is no doubt that candidate's not right for the company.
How many people would you say you probably hire a year? Just for actually across the two, the agency and also?
In terms of specific, how many people have I hired? No. And I'm usually really good with my figures. So this is a lesson to myself today to make sure I've got that information in the future.
But I get, in TA it's hard, yeah.
Hundreds, I would say. And over my 8 years of doing this job with Allsopp and Allsopp, thousands.
I mean, it's. I guess you practice, you get better. You learn. I mean, for anyone in any job, right? Yeah. So and. Because of my background in TA, I can tell you like the way that I interview now is very, very different to how I did when I started out. The way that I evaluate is very different, and the length of time it takes me to evaluate is very different. Because I think
longer or shorter.
The conversations are longer now.
Okay.
But the gut instinct is there in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. Interesting.
I
would feel the same.
Yeah. You have that feeling about someone, but you. I like to ask the questions so that I give them time to prove me right or wrong.
Yeah.
And the ones that prove me wrong, they stick out for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many people you interview, but I'll remember those ones where I'm like, I was really...
That go against the grain.
That go against the grain.
Or what your expectations are.
Yeah, because I'm like, I was a skeptic. And then you said XYZ and it's just, and I like that. So.
What's really important though, and you're one of the first... Well, one of the only people that's ever actually admitted that, and I do exactly the same. But I actually pass on that feedback to a candidate. I don't know whether or not you do.
I do.
When they become employees, it's like, actually, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure on you.
Yeah.
And they'll go, oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, you're not supposed to say that. Well, yeah, because of X, Y, Z. But actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in,
yeah,
I take my hat off to you. Yeah. You're amazing.
Yeah. You go back and you give them, and 100%, I go back and I tell them, I'm like, honestly, you proved me wrong. You proved me wrong. And you've done X that's so much better than what I thought or whatever, I do that. I think it's important, even in the small things. Like I go back and tell people, I didn't know that your team could manage XYZ, but you guys managed it, you killed it, with detail, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's important. So the ones that stick out are the ones that stay with me and I learn from them.
Nice.
Well,
it's a constant learning process, right? And that goes back to the whole interview versus interviewee. We're always learning from each other. 100%.
Okay, back to our facts. Next one. Okay, so the UAE beat out London and New York, okay, to become the world's biggest market for $10 million plus homes. This is according to a Knight Frank report. First of all, that's insane.
Yes.
London and New York. Like I was shocked by that because of the size of the cities, because of
the establishment of their real estate industry.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Like you think about New York, it's just buildings everywhere, right? So are you surprised by that fact?
Surprised-ish, yes, but more so proud, thinking actually this is the industry that I've recruited for the last 8 years, to know that we are being mentioned in such headlines with such established property markets around the world. Like,
it's incredible. It's
incredible. And people want a piece of the action, and I think it's just testament to why so many people are migrating to this part of the world, because it's not considered, I mean, in many respects it is still considered a young market, but it's establishing itself now and it's showing real signs of cross sector. So you could have lots of entry level stuff, and actually there's an interesting fact I'll give you in just a second, but the market is good for people entering. Equally, it's good for the luxury end of the market. And actually, if you consider the Dubai real estate market in its entirety, it's actually considered very good value for money in comparison to other markets around the world.
So what you get, of course. Yeah.
For the plus 10 million, it's absolutely incredible. But let's not forget that actually the market as a whole is incredibly good value for people to invest in.
I mean, look, I've been here for 27 years. I always tell people that I meet, you meet them every year. You meet people all the time that are like, yeah, so I just came to Dubai for a couple months and I'm not planning to stay more than 2 years. And they're here like 15 years later, and it happens to everyone, okay? Yeah. And I think it's because truly the UAE is unmatched in terms of what you get. Like to live in Dubai, the level of quality of service, the vision, the growth, the opportunity. It's just insane. So of course, like for me, it just makes logical sense that everybody would want to be here.
Yep.
Okay, that everyone flocks to being here. But then also the fact that there's an availability to tap into this heightened luxury.
Yeah.
Because Dubai in itself, when you compare it to other countries, people already say like the standard is much higher, it's so much cleaner, like the buildings are beautiful, everything you see is amazing, the aesthetic is great. So then to say that, you know, people can then tap into what you would then classify as even more luxurious.
Yep.
It's of course like, who wouldn't want it, right? If you can afford it, why wouldn't you?
100%.
Right.
But just going back to the affordability piece, the most popular end of the market that we transacted in as a business last year was around 3 million dirham.
Oh.
So we talk about the $10 million plus, which is incredible. And
but the volume is in the,
But the volume is in normal, whatever that is, normal folk moving to Dubai for all of the things that you just mentioned, the safety, the security, the cleanliness, the education, all of these things which are super, super advanced in comparison to other parts of the world. I feel bad saying normal people, because what is a normal person? But if we say entry level, which crazy to think that 3 million dirhams is entry level, but it is. But again, in comparison to other parts of the world, 3 million dirham, which is what, 600-ish thousand pounds in GBP, think about what you can get in other more established markets. It's very little, but actually 3 million here in Dubai is a good place. So I do think there is that luxury element which Dubai is famous for, but it's also building a real name for itself for families and first-time buyers and entry-level buyers coming to the region. And let's face it, there are more of those than there are super high net worth individuals. That's
true. That's very true. And I think was it last year or the year before, there was like a surge in people wanting to buy versus rent. And I think the infrastructure behind it has helped to support it, as in it's so easy to buy. It's not complicated.
No,
it's not complicated. Yeah, like the you know exactly what you need. The documents aren't that much. You sign a couple things, you're in it, and that's it. You're an owner, and I mean,
so long as you have a good professional guiding you through the process.
Of
disclaimer.
Course, disclaimer, of course. But I'm saying like it's very easy to kind of to understand the attractiveness behind it. Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna go back to back to the point that we made earlier. The property sector is saturated.
The property sector can be perceived to be saturated with the number of people that are moving to Dubai to operate within it. Yes.
Fine. The perception, a good word, by the way, because you're right. The perception is that the competition is very high. The workload is strenuous, and it's a difficult sector to gain respect in because of the difficult nature of the clients and the demands and so on. Number one, what are your thoughts on this? And number two, why would you say people should want to find a job within real estate?
So I can't argue with your point that there is a lot of agents in Dubai, for sure, because the market requires a number of agents to be within the marketplace, supply versus demand. But I think that Dubai real estate specifically, and I speak from having worked in the UK estate agency market, is much more lucrative than other parts of the world. So the reason people should want to get into it, one is because it's a world-renowned industry. Like property, wherever you are, fuels an economy, right? But on top of that, people want to earn really good money from the returns that you can get. I think the reason it is saturated is because it looks very glamorous. It looks very exciting. It looks very enticing. But actually, you are dealing with people's savings, people's life savings. You said earlier on, it's a very personal thing, right, to purchase a property. And if you haven't got those other soft skills to be able to manage the clients properly, it doesn't matter whether or not you're chasing a deal. If you haven't got the customer service element, then it can be difficult. So I think people find it difficult to come in, and because they don't make money immediately, or rather make life-changing sums of money immediately, so that's it, Dubai real estate for me is over.
Right.
And I think there's this thing where people think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. And it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a get rich quicker than you could do doing your previous job scheme.
Okay.
Right? Because you could, you could make more money more quickly than if you were working in a salaried position or a country where you were paying tax. But we've had many examples of people that have joined us and in their first 12 months have earned double, triple
what they were
earning in the UK. And I'm talking about the UK as a direct comparison because we hire a lot from that market.
Okay.
But I think people want to get into real estate sometimes for the wrong reasons. They see what they think it is, and actually it's the people that can go beneath that and actually say, no, I want to give my customers the best possible service. I'm passionate about real estate. You said earlier, it's my dream to, flip properties. If people can have that passion and they can show up to work with it, that will go hand in hand with giving a customer a good service.
Which makes sense. You have to love what you do.
You have to.
You have to love what
but you
do.
have to even more so when you're not earning a basic salary. How many people have you spoken to in your time as a TA where they said, the job's all right, pays the bills. No, you do not want to do a job that pays the bills. You want to do a job that you love, that you wake up in the morning and you feel energized with. But when you're not earning a basic salary, if you're not enjoying it,
then
find something else.
Forget it, yeah.
Because there's no basic salary which is going to pay the bills if you're having a bad day. And that's not to say that real estate agents who are successful never have bad days. Of course, they all will have bad days. But they'll also have good days, and they're prepared to have that higher risk for a better reward. It's
so tricky. Like I tell you, I give credit. Let me put it that way. I give credit to everyone who's in this, okay? Because it is so hard.
Yep.
It's so hard. And you are, I'm sure through this conversation, changing my perspective on how I should deal, like how I should approach and how I should deal, and, kind of understand where other people are coming from. But if you have someone you're working with who has your best interest in mind, who understands what you're looking for, who is knowledgeable in their space, and who can guide.
Yep.
I think that's the key, is when you can get that partnership, that collaboration with someone, when you're talking about something so personal, that's where the trust is built. So if you have people that can do that, then you're gold, Well,
you mentioned earlier, I'm sure you said about how would-be people coming into the industry would choose an agency. What you should do is see how many people within that agency are successful and how long they've been in the agency for, how long they've been in the industry for. Because it's easy to, beat on your chest and say, oh, I'm the best, or I've been doing it. Okay, but if you've been doing it for 10, 12, 15 years, sometimes with the same company, you have that voice of authority to say, I know the market seems saturated, but actually come and deal with me because I've been doing it for a long time. I've got proven track record. I've got Google reviews. I've got client testimonials. There's no arguing with any of that. Yeah. Whereas sometimes what happens is hundreds of, thousands, if not new real estate agents come to the city and are quick to jump around from one company to another, to another, to another, in the hope that it will be better at the next agency. Instead, stop. Look at the agencies that you're working with. Look at the top 10. I almost guarantee, and I only use Allsopp and Allsopp as a direct comparison, the most successful people ordinarily will be the people that have been in the agency for the longest.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, it's time. It makes sense.
And that's also what helps build respect and trust in what is, what did you say, the market's is perceived to be one with little or no trust or respect, I think you said.
Yes. And it's easy to have that perception, right? Because you base it off of your own experience, your own dealings, right? So if you have experience with an agent that, is quick to kind of just chase a deal, doesn't really care about what you want, then your perception is going to be negative, right? It soils that for the next person. And then you have to deal with the next person a little bit differently. And it's this domino effect, which is horrible.
Yep.
But it's a fact, right? And it happens across all industries. It's not just property, but as I said, because property is personal, it's valued and viewed a little bit differently.
But also you're sharing a lot of money.
Exactly.
You're giving a lot of money away to invest in that asset.
Yeah.
You want to feel like you're being looked after the whole way through the process, 100%. Especially if you're partying with hundreds of thousands of pounds or dirhams.
100%.
Or millions.
Okay, so you've been here for 8 years. So I'm sure you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay.
I've been very fortunate, actually.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're lucky. I saw something published online, okay? And I don't know how true or untrue this is, but I saw it published and I just thought to myself, I need to bring this up. Here's the title of the article, okay? Dubai real estate job ad sparks fury over dating strategy requirement, okay? There was a real estate position being advertised in Dubai. Basically, it required candidates to strategically leverage dating apps to identify and connect with potential clients. Right. So, okay. So
disclaimer: this is not our business.
No, absolutely. This is not Allsopp and Allsopp. I'll say that very clearly. This caused a huge backlash, okay, within the sector, across the sector, with men and women, but female leaders in the industry in particular were, there was like an uproar, okay, because it's so disrespectful and so demeaning to say, you know what, you could get a client if you just go on a dating app, which is,
yeah.
So my question, is it really this difficult to recruit across the sector that companies are desperately resorting to these measures? Like, have you ever heard of anything like this?
No, and I'm actually not too familiar with this particular story. Again, probably because we've been fortunate as an agency and I'm fortunate as an individual. I haven't come up against this kind of barrier when recruiting.
And I have also never heard of anything like this before.
But I have to say, it is crazy. And I think where this stems from is probably desperation from some companies to suggest that that's the way that you should do business. Forget male or female, whoever it is that's being asked to create a dating profile to generate leads, that get your bag,
get out,
your coat, get out, come and speak to me, and find yourself another job. I think actually if we focus away from the article and say, actually, if you join an agency which has a really great training platform and has really great data and has a trusted name and is well known within the marketplace, on top of all of the other things that you can do, like checking out their social media platforms and their staff and everything else, that should be a better way for you to decipher whether or not working for that agency is better. We spend a lot of money on branding, on marketing, on data, on making the business as visible as it possibly can, because ultimately, like you said earlier, I know Allsopp and Allsopp. I know them as like being very successful within the real estate industry. It means the work that we're doing is going in the right direction because people will know our business. But I find it tragic, is that the right word?
Yes.
that you would be told, oh yeah, well, start a dating profile to potentially get business. Maybe I can see where the good intention was coming from to suggest that you should network, but putting yourself in a position where you're dating to try and win business, no. I think better use of your time would be to network properly and use the data and the information and the training, the tools and the skills that the business should provide you on top of your own outgoing networking efforts, right? I don't know many estate agents or real estate agents in the world that don't network. So networking is one thing, but creating a dating profile,
let's stay away from doing that. Okay, fine. So not advisable.
Not advisable. No.
Okay. Thank you for addressing that. I just thought it was bizarre. Okay. So if you've been here for 8 years, so I've been in the country for a very long time. I was here through the I don't know how to describe it other than saying when the property bubble burst in right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there another one coming? Like, do you think there's another? Is it going to pop? Because we're so high up here right now in terms of demand and what people want, and everything's being developed and there's developments everywhere, and Dubai's just growing and spreading into the land. Is it gonna? Do you think there's another pop?
I think that any market has ups and has downs, peaks and troughs. There will be an adjustment in any market to keep it healthy. Okay. I definitely don't think that we will see times like we have seen previously in 2008, which I guess is the time that you're referring to.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, the time that Allsopp and Allsopp opened its doors.
Right.
In the wake of those times. But I think the reason we won't see that is because there are lots more checks and measures which are in place now in the industry to make sure that people are, one, capable on an affordability perspective, and also we've commented earlier that the market is also very affordable in comparison to other markets in the world. So when we say, or when you say, we're up here and it's very high, do I think it could go even higher? Yes. For sure.
Yeah, and that I anticipate. Okay, I anticipate that it'll only get bigger before there's any sort of temporary decline, if there is one. But actually, you raise a really good point. It's what you're basically saying, if I'm not hearing you incorrectly, is that 2008 taught us something. We learned from it, and we've become stronger from it. And so now we have the necessary precautions or measures in place to make sure that we don't suffer the same way that we did.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's testament to the UAE.
Yeah.
Obviously we're talking specifically about Dubai here, but if we talk about specifically the UAE, if we just snowball slightly and we talk about the way that it handled the pandemic, look at how well the economy has done since, because we learned. Yeah. We adapted, we were dynamic. And that's not necessarily just individual businesses, which I believe Allsopp and Allsopp were during that time, but that's Dubai and the UAE generally. They know what they're doing. Yeah. To steer the economy in the right direction. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. No, it does. Okay. I'm going to wrap up the discussion with my last question, which I ask everybody. Okay. So what advice do you have? Think about like your top pieces of advice that you have for, number one, individuals who are just starting off their career in recruitment. And number two, seasoned professionals within recruitment. Tips
to get into the industry, I would definitely say, are patience. We've spoken quite a lot about how the real estate industry is quite saturated, but if we talk about the job market generally in Dubai, it is quite saturated. We see that with the number of cars on the roads and how long it takes us to get to places at the moment, which
Don't get me started.
It could be perceived as a bad thing, but actually if we look at it at a bird's eye view
it's
level,
a great thing.
It's a great thing because more business. But I think definitely if you are a job seeker, specifically wanting to get into recruitment, practice what you preach, okay? Do your research first from afar, okay? Spec the people out that you want to potentially work with. You joked earlier at the beginning of the podcast to say that you stalked me.
I did, yes.
In a positive way. And I hope you found useful the information that you found. But by being open and having open profiles, and LinkedIn specifically is obviously open, and Instagram, if you have an open profile, you can really get a gauge for the type of person that you potentially want to work for or the company. So do your research and then engage. Yeah. Okay. People think that sending a message which is, I don't know, this long, pages about how you're the best person for the job and this and that and the other. Honestly speaking, as a recruiter, and you'll know this, you probably will skip by because we're very busy doing the things which actually we need to get done immediately on that day. So if you engage in a more personal but professional way, you're likely to build up some conversation rather than blasting somebody with an incredibly long message and hoping that person is going to respond.
100%.
And that isn't just from the perspective of getting into a job, but it's actually when you are prospecting. And I'll use an example which happened yesterday. The CEO of a very large, very well-known company posted an update on LinkedIn. To engage with him, you needed his LinkedIn email. You needed his email address to connect. I didn't have it. I found him on Instagram. I sent him a message. We've ended up having a 3, 4, 5 response conversation each way just by being personal. So you can apply it to anything, right? You don't necessarily have to say it's job seeking, but being personal, I think, is definitely of interest. And I guess persistency.